Who's in? I mean, should we introduce ourselves? Because I think we're introducing ourselves in this video. Did we introduce ourselves in that video? That would be very interesting too.
we should. Okay, we should. That's what we should do. We should just start from the beginning. Let the old us introduce ourselves, and then we'll like update our intro or comment or whatever, or to see like where things have gone. I don't know. I'm a little high, so we'll see what
it's gonna be interesting.
What we come up with. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
Hey.
Oh, no!
Let's have the old introduction.
So today, for our first episode, we're talking about something that is, for some reason, very important to me.
I do not look compressed. The thing is, I like my hair so much better. Okay, so I was originally gonna have I was gonna have a green wig. Like I was gonna totally glam, but I'm now recovering from ankle surgery after breaking my ankle in this episode. So for those of you that don't know, so I'm like completely medicated on the couch right now. I was gonna totally bash how I look, but I look better there than I do now. So I can't say anything because that was the dress I fell in. Oh my god, that dress I'm wearing right now in this episode, that's the dress I broke my ankle in.
Oh my god.
Wow.
In real life. I know. This was an amazing dress that I will never be able to replace because it's like a hard one to find, and I had rhinestones on it, and it was white, pure white down the back. It's more like a tunic, but it's like this sexy summer dress. That is what I fell in. I can't find it now, but that's what I broke my ankle in this week. It was that dress.
I just want to say to the old us, you forgot to introduce yourselves, people.
We did.
Like we did. That was our first episode. We weren't doing any of that.
Who are we?
Yeah, we had no idea what we were doing. Well, we just introduce ourselves at the end.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
There was just an article that came out in the Daily Telegraph, and the headline is, "Delaying the menopause could end choice between career or children, says scientist." And the first reason this bothers me is that in this country in particular, we seem to have this idea that we are entitled to everything.
Pause it.
I love the glasses on top of your head, Kristen. I love your look so much.
No, that was when I thought it would be a great idea to have signals for ease of editing. Like, I don't know. I didn't think editing was a thing for some reason. So I was like, okay, so I'll move the glasses off my head when I'm done talking. But the reason I was going to ask you to pause is because I don't finish talking for a very long time. So we probably don't want to. I mean, I was on a roll. I was like all monologue-y, and we didn't quite have the whole conversational thing going yet. So I just went on and on. So we'll fast forward through this.
I was just nervous as fuck. I could just tell, like, my face is just like, what am I doing?
I was all blasé. I have no idea what I was thinking.
It's like, I've been here, done that.
See, that's exactly how you looked at the last pause.
I haven't changed. Like, I was like freezing there, just going.
This is so funny.
God, I was so interesting. Look at you two.
Oh my god. All right.
Which
Kristen, you do look amazing.
Greedy.
Dude, it's like the one time I did.
Unrealistic.
That's not what I meant.
You know, life is about choices to consider.
What are we talking about?
Where you really want your life to go.
Menopause.
Delaying menopause.
Right.
So the topic was, we're going to talk about old people. We're going to talk about old people having kids, but the whole thing started because there was an article that came out that said that delaying menopause might change the whole women have to choose between career or kids, right? Mm-hmm. So Kristen's saying you can't have it all. I agree with that.
If this happens, by the way, then you have children who are in the position of having to take care of their parents. And there's a name for that, and it's instrumental parentification. And that's when a child has to perform adult physical tasks caring for someone else. And this has been known to lead to, I have to read from my notes, I'm terribly sorry.
This was a time where Kristen had all her notes. Like, you were so organized. You were such a, like, you know, how do you, like a reporter, like, oh, I'm coming from Daily News and these are my notes. Like, it was like, that's how it felt.
Her journalism kicked in.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about something, I knew I wasn't going to remember all that stuff. And there were points, like there were specific things I wanted to point out and cite. So I had to read them from something because I wouldn't have remembered.
Right.
Isabel, do you see do you see these videos and look at your old apartment behind you and miss it?
I don't miss it.
Oh,
Not attached physical spaces.
I'm still living in the same place. I miss that dress.
You were in your old house too, Kristen.
Yeah,
Do you
I
miss
was. No, I don't miss it at all. I have missed places because I like places that I feel at home in. There's one other place I've lived where I just would walk in and it felt like home. Like I felt like I belonged there. It felt very comfortable. And until this place now, I hadn't felt that again. So no, certainly not that. That place was just like, I can't wait to move on to the place I really want to live.
Do you guys remember how you felt when we were recording this first episode?
Yeah, nervous.
Yeah, me too. I
I
can
don't
tell because
remember.
normally I move around a lot when I'm when I'm talking, but I'm trying so hard to sit still. And I just don't feel like I'm comfortable when I look at myself. Like this version of me 2 years ago would be absolutely mortified that I'm sitting here right now with no lighting. I have eyeliner on, but I have no face makeup on. My hair is like whatever because I wasn't doing wigs yet, but at least I had, brushed my hair in that episode. But that's how it's nice and like I'm super comfortable. I'm a lot more comfortable, or maybe it's because I'm on pain medication. I don't know. But like I'm a lot more comfortable doing this than I was in that moment at the beginning. So it's interesting how we've loosened up a lot.
Yeah.
David Letterman had his first child when he was 56. His own dad, died at 57. So he's having a child potentially a year before he himself could reasonably die. And Alec Baldwin, who's 60, I think, is considering having another child with his wife.
I think he did already, right, Lenora?
They have like 5 kids now. I don't think they had 2 years ago. I don't know. They've got like 5 kids under the age of 3. Like they've had a lot of kids since they've had this. And they're, it's been, and one was a surrogate. Like the last one, she didn't give birth to. I mean, yeah, we could, in another 2 years, we'll see how many more kids they have. Anyway, end ranting. My grocery delivery has arrived.
Kristen.
Look at Lenora's face.
It's the same expression I'd have now. I still look at my dad in a dress. It's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
She's like,
this is like a nightmare freeze framing because like all the unflattering angles happen in this episode. I swear to God.
All of them.
Not
for all of us also. Except Kristen's.
Oh Lord. Kristen,
it's gonna happen.
Oh my goodness.
At 60. So while I think these old men married to young women think, oh, I love her, and if she's going to marry me at this age, I'm sure she's going to want children, so I should give her children. But kids aren't bracelets. They're not cars. These are potential beings that you're presenting to a world where you might die very early, and they're going to have to deal with your death. And that is also a bad problem because, excuse me, children are especially, this was according to the NCBI, children are especially vulnerable to psychological problems after the death of a parent. You don't need to reproduce to be a valuable person in a kid's life.
So my mother was 25 years older than me, so not a huge age difference at all. But she died at 47 and she had an illness. So I was 22 years old when she passed. My grief counselor explained to me that I had actual abandonment issues. Now I'm very independent. Like I wanted to leave home when I was 8 years old. And what I did not realize as a child was that I was witnessing my mom sick all the time, but I just saw her as she was. And she had lupus, so it's not cancer. Like it's a hard disease. She was misdiagnosed. She didn't actually know what she had until years later. But what she actually had was lupus, and it was fatal in her case. So I learned to bake. I learned.
It was interesting watching my reaction there. I was really nervous telling that story. So I'm looking at YouTube paused on the screen. I forget you're over here. And I was like, I'm just watching how I move. Like that's how I could control my emotion. Sharing that story was by scratching myself, or like, I mean, not gross, but you know, like scratching my legs or touching something just to get. Oh gosh, this is a funny episode. There's a lot happening. Just watching my reaction, sharing this story, I needed to really move. I still move in episodes, but I was really uncomfortable, so I had to touch my skin while sharing that story.
Tell though.
I can see that. Pardon?
You can't tell. I think you speak really, you know, like
the voice sounds strong and clear, but I just watch my body and my eyes when I watch this, how I needed to move in certain ways to get comfortable enough to, because it was just being on camera. It's not that what I'm talking about is, it's just the fact that I'm so aware that I'm on a screen and that really made me uncomfortable. So that's funny. Again, now I'm like, whatever.
My parents were pretty secretive about the whole thing, so I never really knew what was going on. So now looking back, and now I'm 36, and I've, you know, it's been several years, like.
I just have to say, I don't like 2 years ago. This was 2 years ago, and like I can't wrap my head around that. Like Lauren's like, I was 30, I'm 36, and I was like, fuck.
My expression on my face when you just paused that, my eyes are rolling back in my head. I know. Well, I'm 38 now. We're 38, and Kristen's not 38. She's another age, but yeah.
Yeah, but this was 2 years ago, and like time flies because it feels like it was yesterday that we recorded this.
It does, but also it seems like we've lived a lot since that time. Like a lot has happened. You know, it seems this. We've also commented though how it seems like we've been doing this a lot longer than 2 years, or that we've been, you know, collaborating a lot longer than 2 years. But
yeah,
that's a great expression.
Dealing with the death of a parent, even if you're not super attached to them, does affect you, and how they live their life affects you, and not always in the greatest of ways, which has led to, you know, part of my decision to be child-free. So the thought of someone having children at an older age, that it doesn't fire me up so much the way it does with you, Chris. But I always think of
when we called Kristen Chris, I tried for a little bit. I think when we first met, which was via email, I would call you Chris, but now it just seems Kristen. I can't call you anything other than Kristen, it seems like. But you're okay with that?
Yeah, I don't care.
If somebody wants to have a child and they're 60 or 70 or whatever, you know, okay. I'm a big supporter of the Boys and Girls Club, so I think you talk about fostering. Well, there are millions of children of all ages that need a parental, a mentor. And I'm all for that, you know, more so than procreating anyway.
You know, Lenora always comments on how she thinks I am expressionless, basically, but like I would never really get a sense of what you're thinking either, Isabel. For a lot of episodes.
It's hard to read. Isabel's, yes.
I have my poker face on that day. I remember, like, I think I kind of remember what I was thinking at the moment, but I don't remember what I said. So I'm actually very curious to hear what my 36-year-old me thought about this topic 2 years
I'm so
ago.
glad I got a better mic. Well, I had no mic in that one, but I hear all this fuzzy, like I'm just listening to like the sound stuff. I mean, whatever. We weren't concerned. I mean, honestly, okay, so I was like using an old laptop and I had no microphone. And here's the thing, it just goes to show that you can, when you start a project, you just start with what you have. You don't have to go and get like the fanciest anything, just freaking start. Because if we were waiting for us to get perfect in anything, like perfect lighting, perfect sound, perfect message, we would probably we would have started a few months ago. But you know, it's just like the whole point is like just get started, because you know it takes a while to get comfortable and to find your voice and everything. And so I'm really glad we started just when we did, as we were. I think the timing was great, because suddenly 2 years have gone by and we actually have something to show for it, I think. So I'm glad we just went with it when the idea struck.
There is something psychological about losing a parent younger than normal. You know, you think, well, when I'm 60, 70, you know, whatever, I'll have to bury my parent then. But I'll tell you, a moment that I will probably never forget is picking out my mother's burial outfit. That was everything. I was able to get through everything else, but that moment I almost passed out. I went to her closet and picked out a skirt and a sweater, and I laid it on the bed, and then I just felt, and I'm a pretty strong person, so I don't have that too often, but I felt really dizzy. I was like, okay, I'm burying my mother. So, and I, again, 22 years old.
You know, one of the things that I really admire of you, Elle, is that you've been like so vulnerable since the get-go. Like talking about this moment right now, I was just thinking, oh my God, like this is like our first episode after we introduce ourselves to the world and as Childfree Girls, of course. And you're talking about this really intimate thing. And it's just like, that is so hard to do. You know, especially when you're starting.
Watching myself. Get it again, medication. But no, that was I don't know if I planned to go that direction with it, but I think this was where I was learning that you just go in the moment. You know, never really, you have an idea of what you want to share, but you just see where the conversation takes you. And, you know, but this also speaks to that, because I would have been fine in person sharing this. On camera is a different story. So this speaks to how comfortable I was with the three of us, even at the beginning of this, you know, doing this show, sharing this with you, because I knew that really I was just talking to the two of you, you know, never knowing that someone would watch, but not really knowing who, and wasn't attached to that. But the fact that, you know, I felt comfortable bringing that up, and it felt, for whatever reason in that moment, to share that part of the story, like part of that experience in here. Yeah, no, it's interesting watching. I remember how emotional I was sharing that, and I know what my hands are doing off screen. I think I was folding a towel. I believe I was folding a towel because I need to keep my hands busy, or at least I did at that time. But yeah, no, but I mean, again, it speaks to me. I was really comfortable with you two already at that point. And we'd only, I don't know, a couple weeks, a month, maybe we've been working on this.
Yeah.
Before we recorded this part.
So that's generally not the normal timeline that happens. So, you know, for people having children later on in life to experience parenthood, I can understand, like, if it's just never worked out, and for some reason that's the time that it works. You know, I don't know if it's a natural thing, or if it's something that you're just really trying to make happen. Because, you know, when you really try to force something that you think you really, really want, and then either it doesn't work out, or you get it and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is not exactly what, like, I always worry that is what happens behind closed doors. Behind closed doors. It'll never be said publicly, but behind closed doors, I don't know what people think.
Well, in my case, before I start, look, Kristen's green.
Yay, see, her face does smile.
She can do that.
It's possible.
No, I just wanted to comment on how polite we all were at the beginning. We just kind of like gave each other the time to like talk without interrupting, and sort of like there were big pauses, like big silences, like,
yes,
is she done? She done? Okay, now I can go. And so that's why you see all these cuts as well. And they were like, we had transitions this time. Like, you see this transition, just that's so old school.
Well, we did, and we were still, this was before we went to single screen, because remember we were like, we've gone back to this style, which works because we realized we were trying to be professional, and it's good. We experimented. Yeah. But the three of us on screen, I think, really does capture. I mean, we've since gone back to that. We've gotten away from the single speaker model that we changed after this, but it is funny because we're like, we need more banter. I think once we expanded to the podcast version, we needed to have some filler, like some, instead of just kind of being uniform. But
I think we need to be more relaxed. Yeah, yes,
totally relaxed.
Totally.
Yeah. I know I'm just trying so hard to focus and just keep my face still, which isn't working. It's funny.
When we're discussing this subject, at the beginning, we're just like, you know, in our chat, putting some ideas out there. First thing that came to mind, and I think Lenora and I were talking about this, is how rock and roll it is to have kids when you're really old. You know, you see all these rock stars in their 60s and their 70s, and they have like 100 kids each, and they're still reproducing, but then you see the moms. I was thinking about Mick Jagger, I think. Which I have to say, I fucking love him. He's like the best, worst dancer in the world. But he has like 1 million kids.
Ian's mother loves Mick Jagger. When you said that, I know that when you first said you guys were talking about how rock and roll it was to have kids when you're old, I was thinking, like, my immediate thought was, what? Because I thought you were saying how cool it is. Well, because when someone says something like that's rock and roll, they're usually saying it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So I know that as soon as you said those words, my head was going. But then you clarified, and I was like, oh, literally rock and roll experience. Okay.
Yeah. But that also works though, because people, it seems like it doesn't matter. It would be like a badass thing to have a kid when you're old. I mean, it makes the news.
Yeah, if you're selfish, it's badass until it messes with somebody else's life.
I'm not saying it's badass. That's not my personal opinion. But it's
like the
perceived, it's perceived, I think, in society potentially as badass, which I guess is why which is why we had this episode in the first place, to debate that. But so literally rock and roll, or figuratively,
like rock style,
Mm-hmm.
My dad, he wasn't around a lot. Like he was. I mean, he had me in his mid-20s, so he wasn't old. But he was never around. He was always working, or he was studying. He was always abroad. He was never at home. And if I compare that to having a parent that can't, even if he's around, he can't really share time with you. That's not, I mean, it's not fair for the kid. You know, you need to spend time with your. I honestly have no idea what I'm rambling about. Like, I just lost myself there. I'm like, what is she talking about?
You're talking about your dad. See, to me, I found this really interesting. Like, I know my face might say otherwise when I'm watching this, but I was, that's me listening. I liked this part because I was getting an insight into you.
Oh, okay.
So to me, when I watch this, I get what you're saying, Isabel. I do, because sometimes it takes us a while to formulate our thought and get our point across, and that's okay. Maybe because I've been doing Clubhouse long enough, I'm just used to like the rambling and we get to the point. But personally, I remember thinking, and I still have the same thought, is that I liked this insight into you because it's not that it explains you, but it's just a little piece of you that this is what your experience was growing up. I wouldn't have known it otherwise. So I like that. I like learning those things about people. So for me, I found it interesting when I was listening to you talk about this.
Another piece of the puzzle. Parents. And the one thing that also came to mind when I was trying to think about this is, okay, so we have, the child when it's young, parents need to be, take care of the child, whatever. But then come teenage years. And I was a horrible teenager. Like, I gave so much grief to my parents. I was awful. And I can only think about, those rebellious years where you're like doing everything that you want and just telling your parents that you hate them. And can you imagine you being in your 70s or 80s and having to deal with a teenager telling you that they hate you? Teenagers, that's what we do when you're a teenager. You do stupid shit. And that's the time, I think. I mean, when you're a child, of course, you need your parents to take care of you. But when you're a teenager, for me, it was really important to have good communication with my parents and to have them, to know that they were there, even though I was doing all these crazy things, to know that I had their support in case something happened, and their support to actually just go through that phase, because it is a phase. In my case, it was a phase. Some people just keep on living like that. But and I just think, these old parents, how they could, how heartbroken can they get if they have a kid who's just like doing a lot of stupid shit? I still agree with that. Teenagers are horrible.
Yeah, I wish I were concerned about how the parents handle it, but I'm not, because at this age, if I were to have a child, I would be thinking about how I'm going to handle it, whether I'll have the energy. And it doesn't matter if I do, because that's my choice. So when it comes to any harms or sadnesses or anything like that I might feel, that's something that any person who makes this decision.
I think my problem is that I can't just let something go. Like, you're just trying to add a point, like, yeah, it would also suck to be old having to deal with a teenager. And I'm like, I don't fucking care what those old people have to go through. What about the teenager? God, lighten up. It's apparently very important to me to make that point again and again and again.
Decision is perfectly free to take on themselves. Go for it. You go for your joys, go for your sadnesses. You're taking it on. But as soon as another person is involved, that's where there's a taboo.
Can we talk about the pets?
That was Lenny.
Oh
Lenny.
my
That was Lenny's leg.
Lenny's leg is going.
There were so many times in the early days, I think you guys had your pets like just doing these weird random things in episodes. That I don't know how we kept a straight face during that part, because that was hilarious.
Taboo against criticizing anybody who wants to be a parent. We're just not allowed to do it. They're perfectly free to criticize women who are choosing not to have a child to ever damage or hurt in any way. That for some reason is okay to poo-poo, but there's a taboo when it comes to suggesting maybe that people shouldn't have kids beyond a certain age, because even though you're advocating for the children that they're supposed to love, and I would think you're supposed to love them even before you have them, because you're imagining this real human being in your life who you're going to love more than life. And if you love someone more than life, you want them to be as happy as possible. This is not, once you have a kid, as many mothers will say over and over and over again, it's not about you anymore. So maybe try to make it not about you before you make that decision.
I'm kind of curious if we are actually setting up super high expectations for parents. As I was listening to us speak, I just saw the word expectation flash in my head. I'm like, our Western society here has set up super high expectations, especially for mothers, where it's like, okay, we have to be a certain way to our children. Now, we've talked about certain species that just after 3 weeks kick the cub to the curb and say, okay, you're on your own.
I think we're talking about Lucille right there.
I was just thinking our mascot. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
We totally do put
expectations,
have higher standards on parents. Oh, finally an expression you landed on. That's okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to think of my headspace is not that much different than it was 2 years ago, but that was for different reasons. Trying to formulate my thought. It was interesting here. I guess just trying to, for me at this moment, trying to figure out how to keep going with the conversation. I was realizing how hard it is to do that, because we're just going, it's improvising. We're having just a conversation, but there's that knowledge that it's being recorded, that people are going to listen to it. That's actually harder, at the beginning when you're just to carry on. Like it was, and that moment, I remember feeling, oh, okay, what do I say? I got to say something. I know what I want to say, but how do I say it and say it eloquently enough right off the bat without, it's tricky practice, but I recognize that's that is what's happening in that moment for me right there, is like, okay, I have something to say, but how do I say it?
Yeah, I mean, if parenting were like that from a human perspective, no, I wouldn't have them, because I'd still have to go through birth.
There's a certain reasonable expectation, I think, that we as non-floppy animals should expect to, you know what I mean?
Yes. We're supposed to be above.
Many things I love about how Kristen speaks, but when she puts in things like non-floppy animals or just how you describe things, it's just so awesome. I just love it.
She was talking about seals, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just there's so many, I don't know, that was just one of those moments. She does a lot where she just describes things in such a way that's just awesome to listen to. That's a perfect example of that.
Of the, like, we're supposed to be above other species in caring. Is that what do you mean? Like, is that what you mean?
Yeah, because we're calling our relationships with our children as humans, we're calling it love. We're calling it
right.
nurture.
Okay. Yeah.
So we are setting ourselves up as humans as if we are different from animals. Not necessarily better, because it's proven that we're not, but different. I mean, our relationships with our offspring are different from penguins, just because we have language and daydreams.
Well, I agree with what you were saying, in the sense that, yes, it has to be about children, but like we all know, most people, when they have kids, they're not thinking about the kids. They're thinking about themselves, right? So I would say in this case specifically, the harm is both ways. It goes both ways. It's a parent who's really old and is not going to be able to cope with having a kid, and a kid who's going to be feeling abandoned and having some issues, emotional issues, or any type of issues because their parents are either don't have the strength or the energy to be around, or are sick, or are gone, basically. And so I think it's a lose-lose situation if you see it from the parent side, or if you see it from the child side as well. I mean, I find it actually a little bit gross when you see men that are like super old having babies with young women. It's gross. Stop it. Humanity, just don't.
Well, that is all for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. If you got angry, I'm sorry. But if there's anything you would.
Did anyone get angry at that episode?
I don't think so. I think that we had a few not dislikes of our video, like thumbs down, but we think it was the person who keeps on putting thumbs down in our video.
They don't watch. They're just a chronic thumbs down.
Yeah, they don't watch. Just go and like click on it. But it's funny, Kristen. Like, if you got mad, I'm sorry.
There was.
Well, I don't think I was genuinely sorry. And I do think at the time I was hoping and maybe thinking that there would be some people who are parents or who want to be old parents who would have seen this and just been incensed that we would dare to, to decide who should and shouldn't have children and at what ages.
Were either of you expecting a bunch of negativity at this point? For this episode, do you remember if had we even discussed that? Like,
not specifically for this episode, but I guess we did talk about, because Childfree people in general, we get so much pushback just for our decision. So I think we did talk about getting trolls and people putting nasty comments and thumbs down and everything that has to do with people just not agreeing with us, not necessarily
right,
thinking, oh, this, I don't know, they're stupid or boring or whatever, but mostly I don't agree with you, therefore I don't like your video.
It's funny because prior to this would have been appalling to me to think of sharing my opinion on a topic like this, like in my 20s on YouTube, because I'd be so worried. And I remember when I first started telling people that we were doing this show, and it wasn't Childfree people, it was just like people in my life. That's what they would ask. Well, like, what if someone says something bad, or aren't you afraid? And I don't really think that crossed my mind too much, maybe because it was the three of us together. And so at the very least, we would have each other's backs if something came up. Right. But again, for anyone who's thinking like they have, and it's not that we don't deal with trolls. but I mean, they make great episodes. But that's another reason, like, to not stop you from going out and starting or putting out content like this, or to talk about something, even if it's not about child free, because it really, looking back, hasn't been that bad. We've dealt with it, and it hasn't been excruciating at all, really. It's actually been fun. I mean, maybe because Kristen gets off on it, but
I am very curious to see how we close.
yes.
Would like to ask, anything you want to add, anything you wish we would have talked about, please feel free to email us at childfreegirls@gmail.com.
Wow.
That was short.
That was easy back in the day. We did nothing. We had no intro. We had no outro. What the heck? That's funny. Well, should we introduce ourselves now?
No. Yes. Hello. It's interesting to see that first video that we did together, because it just goes to show how much we've evolved as a group. In the sense that we've been a lot more conscious, I guess, of the kind of, the quality of the content we want to put out there. Everything has changed. Like I had this flashback because I was dating, at the time I was dating someone who works in like audio video kind of thing. Like
Remember that.
And he was like, why are you using those transitions? That's like so fucking old school. Like, don't use transitions. I was going,
You're like, they're cool.
Yeah, I was like, and he's like, no, they're not cool. Stop it. So he was like, it was because of him that I stopped using transitions, because I'm the one who edits the videos. For those of you who don't know,
was this the only episode that we kept it the three on screen, and then someone had given us feedback that it was hard to follow who was talking, and then we went to individual screens? Was it this episode?
The intro, we all were also like, make the Childfree Girls. We're also at the same time. I'm not sure about the episode that goes after this one, which I think it's
the Laura Carroll episode.
It's the one with the parent by accident, is it?
Oh, parenting by circumstance or something.
Yeah, parenting by circumstance. I'm not sure.
Like
What's the one that followed this one? Yeah.
Well, that wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
Maybe
for me
I'm
it was.
thinking about that.
It was.
For me, it was super painful.
Why?
Because I don't know. I was so stiff. I was just like, I don't know. I had this poker face like the whole time, and I think that if you actually want to know me, like who I am, like for my personality, you really need to watch like the latest videos, not the first ones. The first ones was just.
But and that's standard though. I mean, I remember, I was just learning about podcasting at that point, and that's when I was just kind of consuming any content I could find about just doing it, and then what people 5 years down the road think, and they all say the same thing, like the first 50 episodes are crap. This is actually our 50th episode. We've done bonus videos, but I think we improved quite rapidly, quite honestly.
And this is our best one. Yeah, 50.
No, because I'm not even sitting up straight. This will not be our best one. I've got no wig on. I'm on medication. When a year from now, when we look back at this, I'll be like, oh my God, why'd you guys let me do this? I might not even be coherent. The beginning is always the hardest part. But for me, I all I remember thinking to myself was, it's about the message, it's about the topic conversation. And that was for me why I said yes to the project. And I know how uncomfortable I was doing that episode, in like probably the first 10 or 15 episodes of this show, and watching myself there, I'm just kind of like laughing to myself. Again, maybe it's because I'm on painkillers, and so I'm feeling okay, so I can watch myself and not go, oh my gosh, Lenora, keep your head up more, sit still. But for me, it's the message is more important than anything else that's happened. And if anyone got any kind of value out of that first episode and came back to watch, and the fact that our audience has grown since the beginning, our viewership has grown, people still find that valuable. So I don't like dissect too much into what, because I didn't hear anything that we said that made me go, oh, I changed my mind about that. I think in probably the parenting by circumstance episode, or where we're talking about or the episode of What is Being Child Free. I can't remember. It's one of the earlier ones where I was like, you can't have wanted kids ever in the past. You can't want kids in the future. Like, that's the episode where I'd be like, okay, Lenora, calm down a bit. But there's nothing that we said, to me anyway, and that episode we just watched, that made me want to walk anything back. So that gives me hope. And the fact that people still watch the show all these episodes later.
True.
And it is cool though to see our progression, like how we interact with each other, our vibe on now compared to then, and our comfort level. I mean, even if it is painful to watch or for whatever reason, it's just good to see how you evolve as a speaker, as a co-host, you know, just the show itself. That's really cool. So yeah, another 50 episodes coming up.
I just can't believe it's been 2 years, really.
I know.
Time flies,
It went
man.
super fast.
Yeah.
It did.
You know, pretty soon we're going to have to, like the three of us, we're going to have to start finding our retirement homes together. Hopefully.
Well, you know what?
Not in the same house, but
we
like.
We should probably meet in person first. It's really not as scary as it sounds. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's not scary. It's just cool. I mean, the whole apocalypse thing just came upon us very quickly after we started. So
I will tell you though, it will be very weird to see each other in person, because it won't change our dynamic. It'll be fine. It'll just be a little bit weird to see like how we are in person.
Yeah, like the physical embodiment of the human.
That's the thing, because I know you guys like on screen, but like I'm shorter than both of you, wider than both of you, but Isabel's tall, like Kristen's in the middle, but it's like just the physical aspect of it, it's gonna be completely weird. It's like, oh, you guys are in 3D form, and it's gonna be a little bizarre. It's gonna be good. It'll be bizarre, and I'm curious how we interact. And again, it'll all be great, but it'll be weird at first. We're like, oh, it's like want to poke you, like you're like you're real. And then also just then the in-person chemistry, because that would be so fun to do an episode where we're all on, I don't know how it would work, we're all on the same screen, I guess. I don't know, same camera, whatever.
Same camera, same microphone.
That would blow people's minds.
Definitely need to do that.
Mm-hmm. We still have to do that. That'll be so fun. And then in person, Kristen will be way more smiley. Or not kidding. I don't know.
She smiles on the inside. We're kidding.
Smile enough. I smile as much as anybody else.
We're kidding. I hate when people are like, well, you should smile more. I hate it when people say that to me.
It's so annoying.
We're just kidding.
Yeah.
Smile if you want. Don't smile if you don't want. We still like you.
I was so conscious of it, and I don't know if you were part of, like, if this was in Childfree Girls chat or if Lenora had said something specifically about something like on Twitter or somewhere, but there was not too long after that episode, there was some like a book club for the age of the child, and I got to be there for the last part of it. So we're all on video, and I'm talking to people who have read my book, and so I'm thinking the last thing I want any of them to think is that I am in any way unhappy with being here. And if that person watches our videos and gets the impression that I'm always pissed off or something, I was like, the whole time, and the feeling that my face was doing was genuine, but my face just doesn't usually sit there smiling like that. So the whole time I'm kind of like this. I mean, I just have this, I'm just like, just make sure, just check yourself every now and then in the camera and make sure you look happy, like actively happy. Because it just had to be communicated.
And that's exhausting, and it sucks. I mean, that comment was so stupid. I mean, I don't know if they ever responded back. You're like, that's how faces are. They just do things sometimes, you know? I mean,
my sister's face gets her in trouble a lot because it does things that she's thinking before she can control it. So
because I didn't look overly happy in that episode because I was super uncomfortable, but no, it was good. We got through that episode, and the thing is we've been consistent ever since. So
that's the important thing.
And that is the challenge, because 2 years, you never know how it's going to work. We had a good feeling, you know, and the consistency of the show and everything has been great. And there's like, a million opportunities to do other things, a million opportunities that are coming with this as well, is what I'm trying to say. Whew, this is
Payments
a lot harder than I thought.
Payments are kicking in.
Well, they've carried me through the show. I'm also now physically very uncomfortable.
All right.
But yes, this was good. Well, this has been our 50th episode of Childfree Girls. My name is Lenora Faye, because we forgot to say that earlier. That is Isabel, and that is Kristen. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to reach out to us, please email us at childfreegirls@gmail.com, and our website is childfreegirls.com.
And you can find us all over social media. We are most active on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're also on Clubhouse, not as Childfree Girls, but as our individual selves. But our club is called Childfree Club. Clubhouse has changed the way they people can get into clubs for many times. And the latest iteration is you can now request being part of a club. Basically, you can't follow a club anymore. So just go in, catch us there, ask, request following, because we have rooms every single day of the week. And we're also on Amazon. Our book, Childfree Girls, Comfort Food for Thought, which is usually behind Lenora. You can find it on Kindle and paperback.
Thank you, Isabel. Isabel of the Uprising Spark with the podcast, The Honest Upfront.
Oh, yes. I'm Isabel from the Uprising Spark.
I am Kristen, and my role right now is to ask you a question. That question is, if this is not your first episode that you're hearing or watching, I don't know, it sounds a little us-centric to say what was your favorite one, but maybe not what was your favorite one, but what episode do you most remember? Whether it's because we discussed something that you had also been wanting to talk about with somebody, or there's something we said that you really disagreed with, or something you wished you could have added to. Anything memorable for whatever reason, love it, hate it, curiosity, whatever. Let us know in the comments below, or send us an email to the aforementioned Gmail address, childfreegirls@gmail.com. I didn't even take notes for that word.
And also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are listening to the podcast, please head over to our YouTube channel at Childfree Girls and hit the subscribe button, because that really does help us out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. No, you say bye.
No, you say bye.
Oh my God, I'm leaving.
You leave first.
I'm going.
Bye.
Bye.